After almost 12 years and a total of 139 chapters, Attack on Titan has finally come to an end. Many people are satisfied with the ending, while others think that it simply raised more questions than it gave answers. So, in this video we are going to answer some of those very questions. Before we move any further, I must say that this video is a spoiler fest. We will discuss pretty much everything about Attack on Titan in this video, from the manga, the anime, the ending. So if you don't want to be spoiled, get out of here right now. With that out of the way, let us begin. I think it is very crucial to first discuss the Founding Titan and the Attack Titan. We need to establish exactly what Eren can do and what he can't do before we discuss anything else. By the final arc, Isayama introduced so many powers for Eren that it is difficult to actually keep up with his state of mind. And let's be honest, introducing time travel in any story is a tricky choice, because time travel can overcomplicate the plot and even retcon many of the previous arcs. On the bright side, Eren's time travel powers are kind of limited. He knows the future, but he doesn't know everything about the future. He can visit any moment in the past, but he still cannot exactly change the past. The story of Attack on Titan takes place in a singular timeline. There is no evidence that Eren is making alternate timelines with his time travel. So basically, whatever happened in the past will always happen. Dinah in her Titan form will always eat Eren's mom. Grisha will always kill the royal family. So even though Eren can time travel, the past simply cannot change. In chapter 130, it is even shown that Eren questions whether everything was simply set in stone from the very beginning. The most that Eren can do with his time travel powers is influence few people every now and then. For the sake of comparison, I think you can imagine Eren's time travel powers being very similar to the three-eyed raven from Game of Thrones. The three-eyed raven can also visit any time period in the past. He can also see the future in limited capacity, and he can also influence some characters in the past. Game of Thrones is also happening in one single timeline. Now that we understand Eren's powers, let us get to the juicy details. For years since the release of the manga, all of us Attack on Titan fans thought that birds in the series are a symbol of freedom and nothing more. After going through the past chapters, I can say with full confidence that there is much more to the birds than them just being a symbol of freedom. So what exactly is happening here? Simply put, birds in the manga are a way for Isayama to show that Eren is using his Titan powers and is present in a particular scene. At the height of his power, Eren experiences past, present and future all at the same time, which means that different versions of Eren exist throughout the story. At times, there might even be 2 or 3 Eren present doing different things on the same day. Take the very first episode for example. There is Eren number 1 who has to watch his mom get eaten. Then there is Eren number 2 who is manipulating Dinah's Titan form so that she doesn't eat Berthold. And finally, somewhere far away around at the same time, there is Eren number 3 who is making Grisha kill the royal family. That is 3 different versions of Eren present on the same day at 3 different places. Similar type of scenarios happen throughout the story of Attack on Titan, and most of the time, Isayama can't show Eren using his time travel powers, so he simply uses the birds as a substitute for Eren. Birds flying near the walls in the scene, Eren is present in that very scene. Bird is on the ship which Armin, Annie and others are traveling on. Eren is present in that scene also. In fact, the final chapter straight up reveals that the last talk that Armin and Eren had took place right about this moment in chapter 131. There's even an important emphasis put on the bird. So Isayama is showing you Armin and the bird, but what he is trying to convey is that Eren was simply using his Titan powers, watching this very moment. And if that's not all, the biggest evidence by far supporting this point comes from chapter 130. In this chapter, it is revealed that Eren saw a bunch of different memories of his future when he grabbed Historia's hand. All the different shards are memories which Eren saw, but we only need to focus on 3 of them. The first one is where Eren forced Grisha to kill the royal family. This one we already know about. The second memory shard is on the far right, where we see a young Berthold coming out of his Titan form. This is the same moment where Eren took control of Dinah's Titan to save Berthold. As you can see, this is the memory that Eren saw that day when he took control of Dinah's Titan. The third and the most important memory shard is right in the middle, and it's Falco, which is weird, but let's think about this for a second. This memory is when Falco is on the battleground during the war. How can Eren see this memory from this very angle? If you look at every other shard, it is from the point of view of what Eren would see from his own eyes. But the angle in the Falco memory shard can only mean one thing. Eren was right above Falco and was looking down on him at this very moment. Going back to that scene, it is very clear. The bird is right above Falco, and that completely settles it. Eren was using his Titan powers to look at Marley's war, and he looked down on Falco in this very scene. That's where he got this memory from. The ending song of the anime for the final season pretty much has an entire sequence of the bird flying and going through different places using paths. Now whenever you watch Attack on Titan and you see a bird, you can safely assume that Eren might be using paths and is present in that very scene. He may not be present in all the scenes, but he's present in most of them, and that includes the final panel of the manga too. It is not that Eren has turned into a bird, but rather the panel signifies that he might be dead in the present, but since Eren in the past could time travel, he can still watch over Mikasa in some way or form. It is common knowledge by now that Mikasa gets seemingly random headaches through the entire series. There are many different situations where she gets a headache, but there is one thing that's common in all of them, and that is Mikasa is going through a lot of mental stress during a certain event. Some of these events include the first arc where Mikasa and Eren watch Carla get eaten by Dinah. Another moment is when Mikasa thought that Eren was eaten by a Titan. There are moments throughout the story where Mikasa would get a headache regarding certain situation. All these years, there hasn't really been a clear answer for exactly why these headaches happen. That is, until the second last chapter, which is chapter 138. In this chapter, Mikasa gets a headache, and then we see a scene of Eren living with her near a cabin. It appears that they've been living a happy life in that place for quite some time now. This is all the information that we need. You see, every time Mikasa gets a headache in the series, it is simply a sign of Eren using his powers and trying to change Mikasa's memories. He wants Mikasa to live a long and happy life, so he tries to erase her painful memories, but since she's an Akkaman, the founding Titan's power doesn't really work on her. So instead of her memories changing, they simply come rushing back to her, causing her a headache. There are two main evidence that point to this fact. The first one being that whenever Mikasa gets a headache at seemingly random time, it is immediately followed by a memory. Maybe it is the memory that Eren was trying to erase. The second evidence comes from chapter 138. The entire sequence with Mikasa and Eren living by the cabin is not something that Mikasa dreamed of. This entire sequence is actually taking place within paths. We even see a bird here, which we already established earlier in the video as being proof of Eren using his powers. In the final chapter, Eren said that he wanted to spend his life with Mikasa. Chronologically, this scene happened much earlier in chapter 131, so Eren and Mikasa living by the cabin happened afterwards. Eren said that he wanted to live with Mikasa, and that is exactly what he did. Not to mention, the flow of time within parts is very different from the real world. So mere seconds in the real world could mean Eren and Mikasa were living by the cabin for years. In his final moments, right before Eren died, he actually used parts and probably spent a long time living with Mikasa by the cabin within parts. When their time was up, he asked Mikasa to forget about him. He tried to probably even change her memories, but it simply didn't work. Mikasa got a headache and then she did what she had to do. She kissed Eren goodbye in parts, and then she kissed him goodbye in the real world too. Some people think that this entire cabin life is something that Mikasa simply imagined, but that's not true. There is a scene right here before Eren dies where Mikasa tells Eren "Itterashai" or "see you later." Eren actually has this very same memory too. All the way back in chapter 1 of the manga, one of the very first things that we see in the series is Eren seeing this exact memory from his own perspective, which means that it is not something that Mikasa imagined, but rather something they both experienced. Keeping all of these things in mind, the only explanation is that they spent some time living a life within parts. Personally, what I find sad about all of this is the fact that the very first memory that Eren sees in the story is actually the very last moments of his life before his inevitable death. Unlike other things where we can look at the minor details and figure things out, Ymir is that one mystery in the show who is so complex that she's very difficult to solve. Apart from that, Ymir also gives us very little in terms of information, so solving her mystery becomes even more difficult. Keeping these things in mind, everything that we say about Ymir is largely just open-ended. It is up to the readers to decide what they want Ymir's story to be. I won't waste your time by telling you things you've probably already heard a million times, like Stockholm Syndrome, Ymir seeing Mikasa's life as a mirror of hers, and all that. Although these opinions are equally valid, since this is an open ending, I think I found that one explanation which satisfies me more, since it fits the theme of Attack on Titan pretty well. Going by the final chapter, we already know that the power of the Titans existed in the world because Ymir loved King Fritz. Personally, I don't think Ymir loved King Fritz at all. I think she was rather a puppet, or a slave if you prefer, of the creature who gave her the power of the Titans. This creature is what Zeke describes as life, and the purpose of life is to multiply so that it keeps on living. This creature may be a parasite, but in the final arc it has shown that it possesses some form of intelligence, or more accurately, it has some degree of survival instincts. When it was in danger, it released a gas cloud and turned Eldians into Titans to fight for him. This creature seems to operate on the basis of survival instincts and some low level of intelligence. So, 2000 years ago, when this creature saw an injured Ymir fall into the water pit, it did exactly what his purpose dictates him to do. He latched onto Ymir's body with the goal of surviving, multiplying and growing so that he can keep on living. Coincidentally, King Fritz had the very same purpose. He wanted to multiply and grow his Eldian empire. I understand that this is all conjecture on my part, but it makes perfect sense to me that Ymir was a slave not only to King Fritz, but also to the source of Titan powers. If you think this is far-fetched, just remember the King of the Worlds also did something similar. He managed to make a vow to renounce war, which made people a slave to his own will and his own goals. In chapter 120, Zeke manages to nullify the vow to renounce war, and that is probably what happened to Ymir too. She broke past her chains and finally defied the orders of the royal blood, giving power and control to Eren in parts. When Eren said that he'll put an end to this world, do you think he meant the real world, or did he mean the world of parts? Transferring the power and control to Eren meant that only he can put an end to the world of paths, and the only way it would happen was if Mikasa made the choice of actually killing him. Coming to the end of the video, let us discuss how the fight still continues. I can understand why people were disappointed that the fight still continues even after Eren gave up his life for it. But personally, I don't see that as an issue. Eren had many goals on his mind, but on the very top of his list were 3 main goals. He wanted his friends to live a long and happy life. He wanted to kill the Titans, every single one of them. And finally, he wanted to be free. I spent a good amount of time thinking of alternatives, but I can't seem to find any scenario in which Eren is able to achieve all of these goals apart from the ending that we already got. Every other choice involved sacrificing one of his main goals. It was not that Eren chose to end his life in the way that he did, but it was more like he had no other choice. He had to make sure the outside world was damaged enough that they wouldn't immediately attack Paradise Island. He didn't have the option to wipe out the entire world either, because as Armin said, war and conflict will always exist, and with the outside world gone, that conflict was simply going to take place within Paradise Island. Secondly, if Eren didn't wipe off the power of the Titans from the world, Armin would live a very short life and so would Historia, because Eren's founding Titan would need to be passed down to her and her children every 13 years. All in all, even though the fight still continues, I think Eren achieved the goals that he had on his mind. Some things about Ymir might not be perfectly clear in this ending, but this story is not about her. This is the story of Eren, the Attack Titan, the Shingeki no Kyojin. Oof, that was a very long video. So guys, these were my overall thoughts on the finale of Attack on Titan. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that subscribe button or follow me on social media. If you want to discuss this ending or share your thoughts with me, either use the comments or you can also just message me on any of my social media and I will respond. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time.